welcome to my first video on YouTube with my channel, basically Camille Cabrera, author. You might have heard my podcast called Creating with Camille. This is kind of like the partnership that's going to be between my podcast and this YouTube. I think a visual representation sometimes, especially with writing, is very helpful. So I have a few notes on basically how to make a plot that I would like to share with you guys today. If you like the video, feel free to go down and subscribe or like, and just give me some feedback. I'm really excited to hear if you guys like my style, if you would prefer more visuals, let me know. Be gentle, it is my first video, it's my first time here. So basically I'm a 3-time published author. And so what I figured out was basically everything I did was by trial and error. And that's really cool. However, I wanted to share with you guys, my audience, things I wish I had known 2 years ago, which I think would have been beneficial to my writing overall. And hopefully if I can spare one of you guys the time and effort that I had lost to learning these things, I think it'd be worth my while. So for today's episode, according to the notes I also drew up, it will be how to basically make a plot and how to make a good plot for a book or a project. And I know for a lot of us it's a little bit difficult because how can you get all these beautiful ideas in your head onto paper? And especially how can you make that first outline of where you want to go with that book? That is also something I would get stuck with a lot when I was starting out. So what I want to say is also planning is a priority. Especially with writing, you always want to make sure that planning should be number one. So you want to be able to have that out. Number 2 would be find a strategy for plots that work for you. Today in this video, I'm going to be explaining 2 different ways you can learn how to plot that book or plot that novel or screenplay or basically film that you want to write out eventually. Like that's the goal for most screenplays. Or if you have a general play that you want to make, these guidelines will also pertain, mainly because if we go into number 1, I'm going to be explaining Freytag's pyramid today. And Freytag's pyramid, you're not going to believe this, but this basic theory, this explanation of how to write a plot, is over 300 years old. And it derives itself from Gustav Freytag, who was a German playwright, and he made this pyramid basically of how you can create a plot and how it should be executed. And this rough outline is still used today, although there are some places that it is inverted and used slightly differently today. This still holds for most books, and I myself used it as a guideline of how to get my book going in the start. So for Freytag's pyramid, it looks like this, like any common triangle pyramid, but at the very bottom, it's what you call the introduction. And so this level, it's where you want to give us the details, where you want to describe who your characters are, who your main character is, and basically flesh out the details. Where does this character live? What time? Who are they? Where are they in relation to other characters in this outline? Do they have a home? Are they homeless? Like, these are all questions you kind of need to flesh out in the introduction. Then you have the rising action, which would be like right here. And the rising action is where you kind of sow those seeds to get everyone who's reading, get your readers interested and a little curious. So this is kind of where you lay the points that make a reader curious. Oh, I have a necklace. It's been in my family for generations. And it does these weird, interesting things. Oh, I've had this strange power, and it's been slowly growing in me since I was a kid. Like, this is the rising action. This is setting up the climax, which is right at the top, and it's the peak of your drama, basically, in your plot. So this is where you have done all that hard legwork up to this point, and this is perhaps the main fight, the main argument. This is where your main character kind of has to have a moment to shine. Also, through time, this climax doesn't always have to mean a fight. Sometimes we have like an inverted climax, basically, which is where it's not a physical thing, it's like mental. It's like your main character kind of gets like a perspective that's new. Your main character kind of falls into a pit of sadness, a pit of extreme despair, and that kind of boosts and pushes along the rest of the plot. So it just depends how you view that point of execution. And then you have on this side the falling, and that's like the falling action. And at the bottom over here at the very end, it historically was called catastrophe. I'll get into that in a second. But it's also known now as the resolution. So basically, it was called catastrophe because Gustav was a playwright who really was into basically the drama and the the killing off, I would say, of his characters. But I mean, if you're not into catastrophe as the ending, you can also have that resolution at the end. So basically, that's what Freytag's pyramid looks like. So that's one plot way you can like create it. The second one I also use is called the Snowflake Method, and it's kind of inherent in the name, but like a snowflake, not snow flag, I don't know where that came from, sorry guys. Like a snowflake, it kind of is the idea that you build upon each small portion until you get something massive like that snowball. So you build all your tiny words into an amazing novel or amazing story or amazing screenplay, amazing play in general. But it all starts from the same concept of one tiny word. Or as you take the Snowflake Method more literally, it kind of should start with one sentence. And for me, that was hard when I was trying to write a plot, and it was writing a sentence, which was kind of like a teaser for the rest of the book, and get stuck from there. So it was like difficult to narrow it down. But this is also a great way to teach yourself how to become a better writer, is out of necessity. So take your time and work with it to make that one sentence. And that's your one sentence that wants to be like the plot. Then after you have that sentence, then you want to expand upon it and make a paragraph summary of your plot. Once you have that paragraph summary of your plot, then you want to kind of do like a character synopsis for each main character or each character that's important to driving your plot forwards. Okay, so I do this regardless. I think it's very important to be able to understand who your main character is, because you're the only person who's going to know this information. If you don't spell it out for the reader, as the writer, you're going to lose that audience. They're going to be confused. So what I do is I take my time, and I usually have about a page when I'm finished about the main character. Physical appearance, emotional tendencies, right? You have family. You have to have who they are at their core, preferences, dislikes, those kind of things that help make a person. Experiences, sometimes I'll write in like important things that happened in their past that I would be able to reference. So always try and keep a written or typed document for reference about who your characters are. Especially with the physical, those are like little details that you don't want to, as a writer, mix up and confuse or derail your readers from that big picture. because it's like those little hang-ups that when they're not cohesive, it really just kind of wrecks everything. So be careful with that. It's a side note. And then on top of the character synopses, basically what you have to do is write out each section. So a summary of what you want to do in the introduction, summary of the rising action, and a summary of the climax. And then one for the rising or the falling action in this part, and one for the resolution. So you'll have a few paragraphs that are summarized on what you want to do. When I wrote one of my first books, I took it very literally, and I had a paragraph for like each chapter I had in my head written out. So that was very, I would say, restrictive of me, because then I kind of felt like I didn't have enough room to grow. Like, keep in mind what your idea of the plot is before you start writing will most likely not be the end result, because you have to take into account as you write, as you ponder these concepts, they're going to grow. That's a good thing. They're going to become more complex and more intelligent, basically. So one of my suggestions is not boxing yourself in by being too specific, so you have room for growth. I hope you liked this video and these two concepts of how to write a plot. And if you did, feel free to subscribe or like this video. Please be gentle. It was my first video. Tell me what I can do better in the comments. Tell me what you liked. If you have any ideas of what I should do for another video, feel free to tell me below. And thank you for watching. Bye, guys.